So these elbows are glued, these are not yet. So this is going to be coming from the valve to the different zones of the sprinklers. Here I started kind of laying out the way that I want to connect these. So the water is going to flow through there, through this hole. It's going to pressurize all three of these valves by going up into the first one and over to the second one, up into the second one, over to the third one, and up into the third one. So obviously different connectors at Home Depot that I'm using. This is approximately what it'll look like once it is glued on there, and then connecting to that edge. So to connect these pieces, I'm obviously not just doing a butt joint where I'm just touching them to each other. There's a piece of pipe that I cut that's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches long. So part of it goes here and part of it goes there. So let's see, when this is the widest part, and so is let's see, this valve, this guy on this one. So when they're going to be next to each other, I measured out that there's actually going to be a little bit of space between them, so I can just do kind of a butt joint, but again not a butt joint because this will not be able to hold any other water pressure. So after I'm done gluing all of this and putting it on, it'll require probably about 24 hours before I can send water through it to pressurize it and then test it. So if any of these joints are leaking, that means there's no cutting here. It means cutting out the whole section again and redoing it. I mean, hopefully this will not leak. And this is what I was talking about. So this is the pipe that I just glued into this end. I'm going to measure about, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so over this way, cut it, put some glue on that, put some glue into the next connector. The cuts don't come out square, as you can tell. It's not exactly flat, but it doesn't really matter. Just need to put enough glue in there. Make sure the glue goes on the right side. Put the connector the way we want to do it. So what it looks like so far. I got a flashlight, so that's what this looks like. Again, these vertical ones are not glued in yet, but those elbows over there are. So next, a little Pandora music in the background. Next I'm going to glue all of the vertical ones. And then remember I said on the ends here we have to actually glue on those threaded connectors that goes straight into the valves, and then we'll glue the valves on. Okay, for the valves themselves, these are threaded into here. I'm just going to use teflon tape. I'm not going to glue them. So remember to put the teflon tape in the same direction that you're going to be tightening it so it doesn't wrap. Okay. So I'm going to glue these valves on, and in case you didn't know, but the valves do have directionality. So this is the valve. It says, you can see there's an arrow going up and this way and over. So this is the valve. This is the side that's going to be constantly pressurized, and if it opens, it'll let the water through down into the sprinklers. So there's an arrow going up in this way, and there's an arrow going, let's see, over there to the right and down. Anyway, so I'm going to glue them on. They're not going to be exactly parallel to each other, but that's fine. I made sure that the heights of each one of these that corresponds to each valve is about the same height, just so that it sits about equally. Okay, so this is the finished product. That piece of pipe is just there to support it, so it wouldn't bend too much when I was pushing on it. So that's the new section. All these guys are on. And then tomorrow I'll be able to pressurize it and test it, see if there are any leaks. Again, hopefully there are none, because if there are, I will have to basically cut exactly where I cut and rebuild the whole thing. So I think it looks a little bit cleaner than it did here. Although here there's space to fix things if they break more sectionally. And over there, if something is leaking, the whole thing that I just built has to be rebuilt. A risk you take, but it's fresh glue, it's fresh pipes, fresh work, so hopefully it will last. Okay. And now, since I am here, I'm going to take a look at the second coat of that black goopy stuff that I did. So still a little bit of cracking, so I might have to just spot brush a few of these guys. Getting closer, so tomorrow once I pressure test and it passes, I can start filling in the dirt, and I'll have to figure out how to build a little box here since we're going to be pouring concrete on top. So testing the water pressure, you can clearly see the leak there. It seems like all of the glued pieces are actually okay, and the only things that are leaking is what was recommended, just to use the teflon tape, which are these connections here. I mean, I've tightened them as tight as they go. It seems like they're actually leaking on both sides. Everything that's threaded, so there's 6 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut them right here. I have more of these ends. Glue it this time into there. Unfortunately, what that means is that if these things go bad and I have to replace them, I have to replace this whole thing. That's fine. So let me just test the last one. I'm assuming it's going to be leaking also. Just filling up with pressure. Getting all the air out. So these are not wired yet. So I just turned on the valve that sends the water down the supply line into the valves up here, and then testing each valve separately, making sure. Okay, so I'm cutting these off, and I'm going to glue these guys now. So obviously you have to remove this. I have a couple more of these guys, so I'm going to use the blue glue and then throw them on top of here.